education funding in the state budget, but not specifically up to this point for community colleges. The 2015-2016 spending plan includes a $13.75 million increase in community college full-time equivalency aid. That's a lot of money. The budget also establishes regional planning councils to ensure these colleges, business leaders, and local governments are all working together. Joining me now to talk more about this is Steve Aquario, Executive Director of the New York State Association of Counties. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So there's a lot of stuff in the budget that impacts counties, obviously, but this one you guys sent out a statement on yesterday, I think it was, and it's big. I mean, and community colleges, I don't think people know, have a direct financial link to county governments, and not everybody's aware of that.
That's right. I think we have 34 community colleges in New York State, and one of them just applied to host a national presidential debate.
Yep.
Rockland Community College. So, right, the counties are the sponsors. That means they created these institutions, and they're very connected to them. And that's why Kathleen Gimeno, when she came, the Rensselaer County executive, she came to the legislature in February as part of our testimony, and she asked the legislature to restore funding towards community colleges, full-time equivalent, tuition aid, tuition assistance, and the legislature responded. So I think it's a good thing for the state to live up to its obligation. It's supposed to be 1/3 state, 1/3 county, and 1/3 student. And the state needs to make some funding up. They have not been living up to their obligations, so this is one step towards that.
So are they at the 1/3 mark yet, or no? They're getting back there?
They're not at the 1/3. They still have a ways to go to reach that mark. But the continued increases that we've seen over the past few years demonstrate that the state is serious about community.
In some way, it's a recognition that community colleges are increasingly becoming the entry point for a lot of people who want to go to college but perhaps can't afford to go to a four-year school right away. And I think the quality of the education that you can receive at a community college has increased really enormously in recent years because the interest there is so high.
These are major employers. These are major portals to employment for skills. Trades, very important. The president making a national focus on these institutions.
Yeah.
New York is a shining example of a feeder system into the SUNY system at large. And the realignment proposed by the governor, very interesting to realign with businesses, local government leaders, to avoid competition. Why are we competing against each other in higher educational institutions? So we look forward to working with the governor, bringing the voice of the counties to that discussion.
Well, if I remember correctly, the president wants to make community college free. And, you know, at one point you actually could get a free SUNY education in New York, and that obviously hasn't been for quite some time. The governor made a lot of proposals linking performance with aid. Is that indeed the case in the final budget when it comes to community colleges? For example, we were talking about with Chancellor Ziffer when she was here, and then subsequently with UUP, about the effort to link graduation rates, you know, in terms of what kind of aid and performance that you are getting at the SUNY system. Is it similar for community colleges?
I think some of the proposals were reformed as initially proposed by the governor concerning those issues. I think they were reformed, but he did get a lot of reforms in there regarding realignment, tying it to other business colleges or colleges and local governments. So he achieved a lot of what he wanted. The legislature achieved what they wanted with funding. So it was a lot of give and take in this very difficult budget year.
Yeah, it was an unusually difficult budget year. How else did you fare overall when it comes to county government?
That the number of press releases we put out after this budget really illustrated just how connected the local governments are to the state of New York, in particular the counties. Counties are general purpose local governments. That means they provide jail services, local government services. We care for our veterans. We care for our aging community out there. We fix potholes and we run the 911 system. We respond to the community, and at the same time we administer all of the state's health and human services programs.
Right.
That's why we're connected. That's why we're so vocal, because the decisions in Albany really affect the communities all across the state. So when you hear Tom Santulli in Chemung County talking about Medicaid expenditures, or Dan McCoy in Albany County talking about oil spill funds, they're talking about it for a reason, because they're connected to their communities and they want relief.
Okay, so in some cases, for example, your pie in the sky has always been a full state takeover of the local share of Medicaid. New York is one of the few states, if not the only state, that's got that going on at this point. That didn't happen. Let's just put that out there, right? But there were things in here that were good for counties, correct?
There were a lot of things that are positive in this budget, and we can't stop talking about Medicaid because we spend more than all the large states combined in Medicaid, just in New York State here, and the counties in New York City paying nearly $8 billion. It consumes every penny of Erie County's property tax, and Mark Poloncarz, when he proposes a budget, he has to assume that every penny on his property tax levy is going to one federal program, Medicaid.
Well,
it's a big deal.
Yeah, but let's talk about property taxes, because property tax relief didn't make it into the budget in the end. Now, the governor had proposed a circuit breaker, and then the Senate Republicans came back with sort of a rebate program, and they couldn't get on the same page, and so it fell off the table, along with a lot of other initiatives that the governor had put forward in his initial spending proposal. I imagine you're going to be pushing on that very hard in the post-budget session.
To be a governor, and it's got to be difficult to be a state legislator with all the pressures that the people put on you. Arguably, one of the most important components of governing, being a governor or legislator, is appropriating tax dollars.
Yeah.
The budget is very important. It affects each of our lives, you, me, everybody watching, people who live in New York. It's a very important function. He proposed a lot of different proposals. He's talked about property taxes since he became governor. We don't view the circuit breaker as a property tax relief proposal. He does. We have a different opinion of that issue. It's really an income tax credit. So if we want to help a narrow band of people who live in New York State by way of an income tax credit, let's do that. Why are we tying it to local government purposes who have to provide local services and stand to our property tax cap?
Well, you're also going to see the push from the business community, and I know the Senate Republicans, to make the tax cap permanent, and that's going to get linked up, because it has been in the past, to the rent control issue, even though the property tax cap doesn't sunset until a year after the rent laws in New York City, which happens in June. They're tied together, and that was actually done by the former Speaker, Sheldon Silver, and the downstate interests in the Assembly Democratic Conference are going to push for that to happen again.
And it was interesting to see the Senate Republicans propose a property tax cap for New York City. Why were they excluded? Well, they were excluded from the original tax cap. Here, the Senate tried to link it together. It did not make it into the final budget. It probably will be part of the ongoing discussions. The city opposes that. The counties oppose the property tax cap all over the state. As a group, the association doesn't necessarily oppose the property tax cap. We are in full support of capping and cutting property taxes in New York State. How do we do that? What's the best way? The state should assume their programs so the locals can provide for their communities at large all across the state. But it's not over with. This discussion is going to continue post-budget. We have 3 months left in this legislative session. It's one of the priorities of the government. Felt strongly about it too, so it's going to be on the table.
I do want to ask you about this before I let you go. We did not talk about this at all, but it is fascinating. A story in Capital New York today about lobbying disclosure requirements now being tighter at the local level. So it used to apply to communities that were 50,000 people. Now communities that are 5,000 people, if you're going to lobby that community, and there are a lot of things to lobby them on, fracking, casinos, medical marijuana is one that's looming on the horizon, you've got to disclose with JCOPE. Now, whether JCOPE can handle the increased oversight is another matter that we'll leave to the side. Does this impact your members? No, it impacts the lobbyists. But what do you think of this? Would it be beneficial to have the information?
Well, that's right. It's an obligation for lobbyists or people who work in government relations, consultants, attorneys. How are they interacting with public officials? Are they being paid to persuade the local officials, state officials, to influence the outcome of legislation? I think it was perhaps stemming from fracking issues or casino gaming issues, or lots of decisions are made in government. Some have tied to, a lot of income might be tied to this. So for us, it included an additional maybe 17 counties. Most counties were already in the reporting requirements, and it's on the obligation of the private sector official.
But do you support the idea? I mean, particularly...
Sure, I don't think it's a bad idea at all.
You do? Okay, because at the local level, sometimes, you know, people are serving part-time, and they're not at the state capitol. They might not know who these lobbyists are. I mean, I remember cell phone towers back in the day was a huge issue. You had people all over the place trying to influence cell phone tower placement, right? And you had no idea who they were in some cases. So it would be beneficial to have the information if you are a local elected official, I would expect.
Part of the purpose of the association education and training. We intend on doing a full educational outreach to all of the local officials, the county supervisors, county legislators, county executives, just a refresher for some and a new opportunity to learn about this law. But we'll work with this data.